Hey guys, another video today about economic insecurity. I thought I hammered the topic home pretty well yesterday, but more stuff is coming out today that is absolutely supporting my argument from yesterday. So it's important enough that I wanted to share it with you guys. We're going to be going through a couple clips of people talking about exactly what's going on in the financial sector as we speak. All right, so let's get to the first one. I'm going to leave links to both the videos down below in the description. I highly recommend you guys watch those videos as well. They're very informative and well made. So let's dive in.
So come on, Dylan, what's going on?
By the way, this is Dylan Ratigan. He's an American businessman, author. He ran for Congress in the state of New York. He is an informed person when it comes to this discussion, and he's going to be talking about the federal bailouts that I covered yesterday.
The global financial system functions based on this. To be very clear. So if you think of the global financial system as a spinning top that's fat on the top and gets skinnier to a pointy bottom. Can you see that?
Like a top.
Can you see that?
So far, yeah.
The diameter of the bottom of the top, the tip, the pointy part on the floor, are you with me?
Yes.
If I want to widen the diameter of that,
Yeah.
that's how much money is in this market. So however much I add to this little tip at the bottom, it adds to the overall size of the spinning top that I can put on top of it of global money. Trillions, 26, go crazy.
Okay.
When the rates spike in this market, what they're saying is the overall size of the financial top that is the spinning leverage of every bank in the world and every mortgage and business and ticket and whatever, anything, is maxed out. We're at the edge of our risk capacity.
Speculation.
We're at the speculative edge of behavior and of risk taking. So when that number pops off, what that number is popping off is saying, it's hitting a bumper, it's saying, hey, like, I'm okay for you to spend $100 for like every dollar you have, but more than that is like crazy.
So let me see if I can break it down to I can understand it. So
Okay.
what's going on is they're creating financial instruments like, say, derivatives and things like
I'm
that.
saying for every dollar I can take in this market, I'm doing other things with those dollars to make them into tens and hundreds and thousands of dollars for mortgages and credit cards and car loans.
So what you're saying is there's so much more. We've invented so many financial instruments, meaning so many loans and so many
We have
things.
so many uses for money. The payroll
Yeah.
at this bar, the payroll for the year. I mean,
Right.
it's all the money that moves to every transaction.
And so now we're at
is
our-
derived from the size of the repo market.
Right.
Functionally. I mean, that's not exactly correct, but that's for our purposes
And so,
functionally correct.
And so the reason why the rates are spiking is because certain banks aren't going to lend to other banks because they don't feel like lending overnight is as safe as it used to be, right?
Exactly, because the overall risk profile is seen as higher, right? No, so one is maybe the bank's collateral's no good, maybe the default rate's too high, but there's 1,000 maybes, and this is a sort of field day for people that want to get into the maybe Jamie Dimon has got them by the neck in the back of the room. Who knows? But what you do know is that the expression of extremity, of sort of vulnerability, of fragility in the financial system is showing itself in that repo market. That's the bad news. Do you want the good news?
So that's
Do you want the good news or not?
Yes. What's the good news?
Doesn't matter.
Why doesn't that matter?
Because after 2000, so what was Rahm Emanuel's number one line to the Democratic Party caucus before they passed Dodd-Frank in order to whip votes?
I don't know.
That was his PR thing, but what did he say privately?
I don't know. He said call people retarded. I know that.
He said, if you vote for this bill, being Dodd-Frank, which facilitates and allows a lot of everything you're talking about to happen without anybody knowing about it, unless fools like you bring it up, if you don't mind.
No problem.
All right. Rahm Emanuel said, if you vote for this bill being Dodd-Frank, you will never have to have a public vote on a bailout of any financial system ever again, because we're going to create this law that makes everybody a bank holding company. It doesn't matter what the words are. They created a way for the central bank legally to have direct access to a set of banks without any political interaction of any kind ever again. And as a result of that, in the past it used to be when you'd run up against the bumpers, you'd be like, well, I guess I got to go call somebody and ask for $100 billion because I got a little bit of it. Now they're like, don't bother. Like, it's just tap it. And so the only place the risk actually lives after you get off of the emotional and the betrayal and the theft and the horrors that all that we can talk about, they've figured out that they can make all of that risk live inside the currency that is the US dollar, which is...
Okay, so wow, that's crazy. So basically, to break it down for you guys, what he's saying is back in 2008, this huge economic downturn happened, this crash happened, where all of these subprime mortgages, these loans were defaulted upon, right? And it created a crisis of debt that cannot be paid, and it was just rampant, right? It had this domino effect. The housing market crashed. Every other market crashed around it. And the only way we got out of it, with relative ease, I mean, it was a horrible time. I remember I was in high school at the time, and everybody was getting laid off and yada yada. It was awful. But the only way we really got out of it was with the bailouts, right? The $1 trillion bailout I talked about in my last video. So that was a huge deal. It was public facing. It was voted upon in Congress and the Senate, and it was a big deal, right? And people were outraged that the people at the top were allowed to let this happen. They ran it into the ground, right? Basically, what came about after that was the bailout. And in that bailout, what he's talking about here is the Dodd-Frank legislation that basically says that doesn't need to be public facing anymore. It created this disgusting union between the Federal Reserve and the big banks to where they can just tap it, just put it on my tab, baby, and just instant cash, man. 75 billion, 80 billion. They wanted 80 billion, and then this video was recorded back in October 31st. It's happening again, folks. And like he said, the only way it gets brought up is if fools like Jimmy Dore or fools like me ask about it, ask questions. So it's extremely disturbing. And then all the risk lives in the US dollar. So basically, they can transfer all of their shitty loans and debt that will never be paid, and they can pay themselves off and transfer that debt, that burden, into the currency of the US dollar. Basically, guys, what we're looking at is a complete mismanagement of our financial system from the very core. It's going to have devastating consequences. I think he said it in the clip I showed you, that in about 50 years, we'll see just how far we can push this. That's not to say that we won't have any recessions or depressions in the meantime, but on this path, the US dollar will crash. And like I said, watch the entire video. He talks a little bit more about this. It's really good stuff. I just didn't want to spend too much time on a single clip. So we're going to move to the next one.
Very interesting. And what about the structure of our financial system? I mean, are we still vulnerable for this kind of crash again?
We are seeing the creation of really troubling new kinds of mortgage products that remind me a lot of what happened in 2006 and 7. So I follow in my book Home Wreckers this house outside of Los Angeles, which was owned by the same family for more than 30 years. And then it was foreclosed on by Steve Mnuchin's bank, bought up by a hedge fund founded by Tom Barrack, now owned by another private equity firm headed by Steve Schwartzman, right? But it's not just the rising rents and the transfer of equity that's a problem here. Also, this house has been leveraged by these hedge funds multiple times. So if you go look at the property record at this 1,500 square foot house, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a little patch of lawn, and a lemon tree out front, you will see a $960 million lien.
What?
recorded on this little house. Yes, $960 million, almost $1 billion against one house. And that's because it's part of this gigantic new mortgage-backed security that Invitations Homes, the corporate owner, has created. So they bundled all these homes together. They've taken out a ton of debt against all the homes. So right now, from a global economics perspective, everything's fine. There's someone in this house paying $3,000 a month in rent. But what if the unemployment rate goes up?
Right.
What if people can't afford those rents? Then this whole giant pile of debt will crumble, and we could easily be back in the same situation we were in 2008.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, their reaction just says it all. Like, can you really believe we're barely 10 years past that disaster and we're already repeating the same mistakes? Greed knows no bounds. These people, they didn't have any consequences last time. They're just going to do it again. Don't take my word for it. There's experts out there that are saying the same exact thing. For every expert that says this, there's one that says, oh, everything's fine. But, I mean, how much is that guy getting paid? How much is he actually paying attention to what's going on? All the signs are there. I mean, if you just turn on your brain, turn on the little logic machine, it looks really bad. It looks really, really bad. So economic security is a myth. It's a farce. We are going down a very familiar road, and it's paved with unemployment and economic insecurity. It's funny that he said that would be the trigger of another crisis, spiking unemployment. Interesting that he says that, because guess what? We're looking at a huge wave of automation and artificial intelligence that's going to put, an unfathomable amount of people out of work. Not all at once, but over time, it'll absolutely, that's what we're looking at. And it's going to happen fast. And we need to figure out solutions. Not tomorrow, but now. We needed them yesterday. Second best time is today. So, I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you haven't seen the first part, where I dive into this a little bit more, I encourage you to go back to that video, watch that video. I'll put it up on the end screen. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the economic insecurity that we're faced with, and again, why being politically engaged and finding the path forward through this disaster is so important right now. So I'll leave you guys with that, and have a great Veterans Day.